The call came at 4:47 in the morning. I know the time because my phone was face down on the nightstand, and when it buzzed I turned it over and looked at the screen before I answered. A habit from years of early morning calls from different time zones, the kind of work travel that resets your relationship with sleep permanently. The screen said unknown number. I answered anyway because unknown numbers at 4:47 in the morning are either wrong numbers or things you need to know about. It was neither wrong nor something I had been prepared for. The woman who called identified herself as Patricia Marsh, Patient Services Administrator at Riverside Medical Center. She said she was calling regarding a patient named David Harlow. She said she wanted to verify some documentation that had been submitted on my behalf. David Harlow is my father. Documentation submitted on my behalf. I sat up in the dark of my hotel room in Edinburgh and asked her to tell me what documentation she meant. She said there had been a medical directive amendment submitted 2 days earlier, updating the healthcare proxy and decision-making authority for my father's care. She said my signature appeared on the document as co-signer. She said she was calling because the contact information listed for me on the document did not match the contact information they had on file from my father's original admission paperwork, and their policy required verification when contact details conflicted. I had not signed any document. I had not been contacted about any document. I had been in Edinburgh for 11 days on a work assignment and had spoken to my father 4 times during that period, calls about his condition, his comfort, his daily updates, and not once had my brother Marcus mentioned a medical directive amendment. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know in the comments where you are listening from. My name is Sophie Harlow. I am 32 years old. And what Marcus had submitted to that hospital while I was 6 time zones away, and what Patricia Marsh's verification call uncovered, and what happened in the 72 hours after I landed back home, changed everything my father's care team thought they knew about who had authority to make decisions for him. My father had been admitted to Riverside Medical 3 weeks before Patricia's call. A cardiac event. Not his first but the most serious, the kind that repositions everything in your understanding of time and urgency. I had been scheduled to travel for work the following week and had spent 48 hours deciding whether to cancel. My father had told me to go. My brother Marcus had told me he would handle things. My father's cardiologist had said the immediate crisis had stabilized and that the following weeks would be monitoring and management. I had gone. Marcus and I have always had different relationships with our father. Not hostile, not even particularly tense, but shaped by the different roles we had settled into over the years. Marcus was local. He had stayed in the city where we grew up, built his life within 20 minutes of my parents' house, and had always been the one who handled the immediate physical logistics of family. I had moved for work at 24 and had been the one who handled the longer conversations, the research, the documentation. My father's original healthcare proxy had been drawn up 4 years earlier, naming Marcus and me as joint proxies, equal authority, both signatures required for major medical decisions. I had been involved in drafting it. I understood what it meant. I had a copy in my files at home. Equal authority meant both signatures. Not one. Both. Marcus had submitted an amendment. I did not hang up with Patricia Marsh until I had understood the full picture. The amendment, she explained, modified the healthcare proxy to give Marcus sole decision-making authority, removing the joint requirement. It listed a reason. She read it to me carefully, citing that the co-proxy was frequently abroad and that delays in reaching her had created difficulties in care management. The document bore 2 signatures. My father's, which Patricia said appeared consistent with his other signed documents on file, and mine, which I had not provided. I asked Patricia to hold the document. I asked her to note in my father's file that the signature had not been verified and that I was disputing its authenticity. I asked her to ensure that no major medical decisions were made under the amended directive until the matter was resolved. She said she would flag the file immediately. I said I would be on the next available flight. Then I called my attorney. It was 5:15 in the morning in Edinburgh. It was 11:15 the previous night in New York. My attorney, a woman named Sandra Park who had been handling my personal legal matters for 4 years and who had, on more than one occasion, answered her phone at unconventional hours, answered on the 3rd ring. I told her what Patricia had told me. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Sophie, forging a signature on a medical document is a felony." I said I knew. She said, I need you to get me a copy of the original proxy and the amended document as soon as possible. Don't confront Marcus before we have both. I said I was on the next flight. The flight landed at 6:40 a.m. I went directly from the airport to Riverside Medical. Patricia Marsh met me in person. A composed woman in her 50s who had the specific energy of someone who has seen many complicated family situations and has developed the patience to navigate them without taking sides. She brought me to her office. She showed me the amendment. I looked at my signature. The one I had not written. It was close. Marcus had always been observant. He had watched me sign things at family gatherings, at restaurant checks, at the occasional document that required both our signatures on our father's behalf. The forgery was not casual. It had been practiced. I photographed everything. I sent it to Sandra. Then I went to see my father. He was in a private room on the cardiac floor, smaller than I had expected, with monitors that beeped at intervals and a window that faced the parking structure. He looked tired in the way that people look when illness has been making decisions about their body without their input. He looked up when I came in and his face did something complicated, relief and something else, something that told me before he spoke that he had not known. "Sophie," he said. "I didn't know you were coming back." I sat down beside him. I held his hand. I said I had gotten a call. He asked what kind of call. I said the hospital had called to verify some documentation. I said I would explain the details later when he was rested. I said he did not need to worry about anything. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he said, "Whatever Marcus did, I didn't ask him to." I said I knew. Sandra filed the formal dispute with the hospital that afternoon. The hospital's legal team reviewed the documentation, the original proxy, the amendment, the authentication records for each signature. They had a handwriting analyst on retainer for exactly these situations, Patricia told me, because family disputes over medical authority were not uncommon. The analysis took 4 days. The conclusion was unambiguous. The signature attributed to me on the amendment was not consistent with my authenticated signature on the original proxy document. The amendment was invalidated. Marcus was informed by the hospital's legal team, a conversation I was not present for and that Patricia described to me afterward as brief. The hospital filed a report with the relevant authorities, as they were required to do when document fraud was identified on medical records. What happened through that process I will not describe in full because parts of it remain ongoing and because the legal specifics are not the point of this story. What is the point is what happened between Marcus and me. He called me 2 days after the amendment was invalidated. I answered because he is my brother and because our father was in the hospital and because some conversations cannot be deferred indefinitely regardless of how difficult they are. He said he had been trying to protect our father. He said I was unreachable. He said decisions needed to be made and he could not make them alone. I let him finish. Then I said, "Marcus, the original proxy gave you the authority to make decisions in my absence. You already had what you needed. What you did not have, what you tried to take, was the authority to make decisions without me." He was quiet for a long time. "There's a difference," I said, "between managing things when I'm unavailable and removing me from the process entirely. You knew that. You knew it when you drafted that document." He said he was sorry. I said I appreciated that. I said the more important apology was to our father, who had been placed in the middle of something he had not asked for and who deserved to have both his children make decisions for him together, the way the original document had specified and the way he had intended. Marcus visited our father the following day. I was there. It was a difficult conversation and a necessary one, and I will leave its specifics between the three of us. My father came home from Riverside Medical 6 weeks after Patricia's call. I was there for the discharge. I helped him into the car and drove him home and sat with him in the living room of the house I had grown up in while he told me about the nurses he had liked and the food he had not and the particular quality of hospital silence that makes you appreciate ordinary noise. The original healthcare proxy remains in effect. Joint authority. Both signatures required. I have ensured that my contact information at the hospital is current and that the file notes are clear. I call my father every Tuesday and Thursday. Sometimes more. I answer when he calls regardless of the time zone. Patricia Marsh sent me a card 3 months after my father's discharge. It said she was glad things had worked out. It was a small gesture and I kept it because small gestures from careful people are worth keeping. My father is doing well. He tends his garden in the mornings slowly the way doctors tell him to. He calls Marcus on Sundays. He calls me on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and sometimes on Saturdays when something happens worth sharing. He told me once on a Tuesday call that he was glad I had answered when the hospital called. I said I would always answer. He said he knew. He said that was why he had made sure they had my real number. I asked what he meant. He said that when Marcus had asked him to sign the amendment, he had signed it, but that he had also, separately, called the hospital admissions office the following day and updated my contact information in his file with the number he had always used to reach me. He had known something was wrong. He had not known how to stop it. But he had made sure I could be reached. I sat with that for a long moment. Then I told him I loved him. He said he knew that too.